All right. Okay. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm Margie Cherry, Associate Director of Alumni Career Services at the Gateway Career Center here at Lafayette. And we're just thrilled that you're here with us today for our presentation of conducting a job search in uncertain times. This is a part of the Connected Virtual Learning Community Series that we've been presenting. So today, Alumni Relations at the Gateway Career Center appreciate you spending some of your time. We know how busy you are. We're glad that you're spending some of the time with us today here at Lafayette. And before I introduce the speaker, just want to go over a few housekeeping tips, okay? So just to let you know, we have you all on the audience mute, and that's to eliminate background noise so you have the best possible speaker experience. You may also want to consider taking yourself off video once the presentation starts. And if you select the second little rectangle at the top of the participant view, that's the one that says show small active speaker video, the second little rectangle, that will give you the optimized view of the speaker during the presentation. So you might want to try that if you just hover over that little second rectangle right there. And we do welcome questions. The chat bar, which you'll see down below, if you click on the chat bar, just type any question that you have into the chat bar. We will be getting to that at the end of the presentation. We'll have time for Q&A, and I'll be reading out the questions. So rest assured, I'll get to as many as we can during the time that we have for Q&A. So also please note, this presentation will be recorded so that you can enjoy it later and the rest of the Lafayette community can access it. So don't worry if you miss anything. It will be there for you in recording. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker. Today's speaker is Vicki Salemi, class of '95. Vicki is a career expert for Monster as their national spokesperson. She is also an author, a speaker, a columnist, a career coach, and a consultant, and a great friend of Lafayette. She writes for Forbes and the New York Post's At Work section and has appeared on the Today Show, MSNBC, and other nationally syndicated news programs. Today, she's going to share her insights from over 15 years in human resources and corporate recruiting. And she'll share that with us in her presentation called Conducting a Job Search in Uncertain Times. So without further ado, please welcome our favorite career expert, the woman with the big smile and the big personality, our very own Vicki Salemi.
Thank you, Margie, for a wonderful introduction. And hello, everyone. Thank you for spending time out of your busy day with us today. Our goal is for you to leave this webinar feeling empowered and like you've got this. So I'm going to go through each slide and we'll talk about different tips and tools you can leverage to land a job and conduct a successful search during these unprecedented times. Next slide. Great. So we can't talk about the job search without your actual emotions attached to it, because it can be an emotional roller coaster, let's admit it. Success, Winston Churchill once said, success is going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. So basically, when you conduct your job search, when you interview, conduct informational interviews, interact with employers, you really need to be passionate, positive, and enthusiastic, which may not exactly be what you're feeling all the time on the inside, because you may have angst, fear, grief if you're dealing with job loss, frustration, despair, impatience. It may feel like it's taking forever, helplessness, lack of identity, lack of sense of purpose, lack of structure. Not to be all doom and gloom, but we just need to address these emotions may exist and figure out how you can separate them from the actual job search. We are going to get into the actual tips and tools for your job search to hit the ground running, but we need to address the emotions first so you can attempt to separate them from your actual job search. If you go in your job search thinking it's going to take forever, or this is never going to happen, or it's a really bad job market, your outcome will likely be reflective of what you're imagining it to be. And I'll give you an example. So when I worked at KPMG in recruiting during the last recession, it was an interesting time for recruiters because we weren't recruiting. There was a hiring freeze. And before most of us got let go, yours truly included, we were set up to be transitional coaches. So KPMG had an outsourcing placement firm that helped management and above, but to keep recruiters busy, honestly, and leverage our skill sets, we were coaching staff level employees who were let go. And what's interesting is I remember very vividly, just this anecdote to help give you perspective. I had two employees side by side, very same level, Their resumes looked practically identical. One of them was just so distraught. He was in denial. He was let go. He and his wife just gave birth to twins, and he was just like, how am I going to handle this? I can't believe this is happening. It was very hard for me to coach him with his resume and give him constructive advice and job search tips and tools. And he was just so upset and wrapped in grief that he wasn't able to proceed. On the other hand, I had another employee I was coaching, and he was like, I've got this, this is great. I actually wanted time off. I really, whatever. I've learned how to trade stocks on the stock market. I'm making a little money. So yeah, if it happens, it happens. Literally within 4 weeks during the recession, the second employee I just described, who was really easy breezy about it, landed the job. The first one, I don't even think he landed one for quite some time because we connected on LinkedIn afterwards. And I remember telling him, first you need to deal with all these emotions so you can separate them from your job search. So just that anecdote to keep in mind that yes, it may feel, we don't want to downplay the emotions you may be having, but there are ways to flip it upside down so you can enter this job search with excitement and eagerness and just preparation. Next slide. Okay, so whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So attitude is really everything. So a study published in Psychological Science shows how positive thinking law students were able to ward off the common cold more easily than students who had a bleaker outlook in life. So basically, if you're more positive, you can strengthen your immune system, ward off common cold, illnesses, reduce stress and anxiety, sleep better, lengthen your life, land a job. Now there's an asterisk there because I couldn't find direct correlations between your positive thinking and actually landing a job. I was a psych major at Lafayette, and I think it'd be really hard to find a correlation because there's so many external factors when you're looking for a job. However, the takeaway I want you to get from this slide is that your attitude really is everything. If you go into this job search, whether you're a college grad, whether you're rebooting your career, whether it's job loss, you're furloughed, all of the above, any of the above, at any point in time beyond today, you want to think about how you're approaching your job search with a positive attitude, because that's the way you'll not only be able to hopefully land a job faster and even a better job because you'll be in better health to interview, your mind will be sharper, you'll just come off as a much more positive candidate, and rather than being someone who's looking at the glass half empty. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to talk briefly about addressing your emotions and building resiliency so then we can get to who's hiring and how you can land that job. Okay, first of all, reframe everything. Even though your mind may be telling you, okay, this is just awful, or, I just can't deal with this. I get that a lot from clients that I coach. You need to just reframe it and think, okay, this is an opportunity. There are opportunities out there. This is an opportunity for me to reframe my thinking and launch my career. Reach out to mental health counselors, take up new activities. Instagram Live has been on fire. If you have seen dance classes by Debbie Allen, comedians, different fireside chats. Coursera offers free classes. You can get certifications in IT. You can take a Yale happiness course. There's so many others. One I saw last night also on Coursera is with the Wharton School of Business. You can do a lot of different things. So you can listen to inspirational commencement speeches, tap into different online tools and resources to keep you engaged, active, but also potentially gain new skills that you can put on your resume that we'll talk about a little bit later about how you're going to address a potential gap on your resume. And also, just to reiterate, positive thoughts. So a few years ago, this is interesting, when I used to do a lot of red carpet interviews in New York City for New York Magazine, I interviewed Serena Williams. And I was like, you always have headphones on before you go into a match. What are you listening to? So it turns out she's a game day song or match song. She plays the theme song to Fame. So if you need to pick a song that's going to get you in gear, get your mind focused, in the zone, and ready. And so in tennis, there's a ritual, before you go on the court, there's a long tunnel, especially in all the big matches that Serena, I think she's the greatest player of all time, that she approaches, all the players go through this tunnel. So think of your interview as this tunnel, and you need to get that mindset right in terms of whatever songs, whatever positive quotes, words, people you're surrounding yourself with. And then also to build resiliency, of course, you need proper sleep, exercise, and nutrition. Just the basics, but also just to think, okay, now you're ready for this job search that you're going to really, I don't want to say attack, you want to embrace it and try to have some fun with it and really to get that next step in your career. And you also need stamina because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. If you're exhausted or you're ill, you won't interview well. You need to stay focused. Try to incorporate structure into your day, especially if you found that there's a lack of structure. Put things on your calendar, check in with friends, Lafayette, roommates, any connection you have to also just strengthen your soft skills so you don't get stale. Next slide, please. Okay, so now that we've dealt with that, and if you have questions about any of that, definitely we're going to take questions at the end. Happy to answer them for you, as well as what we're going to go over right now. But I feel like they're two separate things we need to separate so we can divide and conquer. Okay, so who's hiring? Go where the demand is strongest. I'm going to start by saying, when I do all my media interviews for Monster, when I go on TV, I talk about this. The underlying message is also, this is temporary right now. If you've been furloughed or laid off, or the job search just seems to be slower than normal, this is temporary. There's nowhere to go but up. We're optimistic that jobs are going to start becoming more available. So right now, Dunkin' Donuts just announced, I think they're hiring 25,000 jobs, CVS, Walgreens, healthcare. So if you, let's say we're in recruiting and you worked in recruiting for a massive luxury hotel chain, maybe now you're furloughed because the whole travel industry is basically furloughed. However, healthcare cannot hire fast enough. So you might want to pivot those recruiting skills that you have into a position within healthcare. So you're hiring within healthcare, because if they can't hire enough, they need people to do the hiring. And so if you haven't been a recruiter, you're thinking, okay, how do I get those jobs? Think about, we can go into a little bit, we'll go into job descriptions and how you can pivot, but also just getting back to other jobs available right now, logistics, manufacturing. At Monster, we're seeing a lot more business opportunities becoming available. This is a good sign. As various geographic regions are reopening throughout the country, with that, we're seeing more opportunities within business operations, within software, within development, and then customer service. For instance, mobile text messaging, I've seen a lot of jobs right now in that area. And just going back to hospitality and retail in particular, and tourism and travel, and the industries that were really hit the hardest, restaurants, just dining, everything, you'll need to pivot. I got this question recently, well, what if you're furloughed and you got a job offer, or not a job offer, your employer said, okay, we need you back by July 1st, and maybe you were actually earning more money on unemployment. Then you'd have to stop accepting unemployment because you did get a job offer that you rejected because it was an offer coming in. So you need to really leverage this time to do some soul searching in terms of what you enjoyed doing. If you were in that category that you were furloughed or laid off, what did you enjoy doing? What did you excel at? And then where the demand is. So we know there's such a strong demand in those areas I mentioned. Truck driving, delivery, a lot of the frontline workers, but now also more business opportunities. And also, you might want to think about short-term versus long-term goals. So your eye on the prize might be, okay, you want to be a director of global manufacturing for a pharmaceutical company. But in the meantime, if there aren't any positions available, you might want to get your foot in the door in a pharmaceutical company, however you can work your way up or work your way in. So think about short-term versus long-term. If you're also just at the point where you've been self-quarantining with your family or alone at home, you're like, I just need to get out of the house. Maybe there's something that you can do in the short term, even if it's a job as retail starts opening up, or working a job that you don't think more of as a career. You think of it as like a job. It's a paycheck. It's going to pay some bills. It's getting you out of the house. You can network with people. You can work on time. You feel productive. And so there's something to be said about that. And I always tell people, think about your own financial situation in terms of there's nothing beneath you, in terms of, especially if you're right out of college, what would you do if you were, let's say you had an internship that was rescinded or a job offer that was rescinded? What can you do now to keep your skills sharp and stay active? And I should say the nature of work is changing. So in the past with your job search, you may have conducted it in terms of, let's say, a radius outside your home, maybe 10 miles, 25 miles, whatever area you're in. Well, now surveys have shown that more companies are open to working from home, having employees working from home after the pandemic. And many are trying to figure out cleaning protocols in their offices. I know I have friends in New York City who are just saying, like, they're not going to commute on a subway. They don't feel comfortable. It's working well to work from home. And if their employers are okay with it, well, then they're going to continue working from home. So when it comes to your job search, you can think in the same terms. You don't necessarily, you aren't necessarily, I don't want to say limited, but you can think outside the box. Think outside your immediate area where you would normally commute. Look at opportunities in Atlanta, Florida, California, wherever across the country. Think outside the lines, because companies are as well. They're deciding, wait, this, this work from home thing, WFH, is working out well. So how can they bring on people to their team that can also work from home? So definitely when you're conducting your job search, you may want to think outside of your geographic region, and also find out when you're interviewing, what are their plans? Are they going to make it mandatory for employees to come back to the office in 2021? Will you need to travel? And they may not know either, because as much as this may feel uncertain for job seekers, it's also a little bit uncertain for employers, because they're figuring out office space. They're figuring out how to onboard and train new employees, how to assimilate them. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. We're all on the same team to work together. So for you, think about perhaps continuing working from home in a new role. And also the nature of work is going to change as well. So it's just in terms of a new mindset when you're looking for a job, surveys have shown there will be less meetings in office, less business travel, more cleaning protocols in office, and most likely more opportunities to work from home. So that said, next slide, please. Okay, how to market yourself. Maya Angelou once said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I'll give you an example. A friend of mine got hired by Netflix, and she basically got, I don't want to say a random email because nothing seems random, but she got an email from a former coworker. He didn't really know what her role was a few years ago when they worked together in different departments. He just knew she was really positive, and she felt like anything can get done, and she was a problem solver. And so she moved cross country. Now she's working for Netflix. So think about what I said earlier in terms of your attitude. So it's not necessarily attaching yourself to a specific job or a specific role that you've had, but think bigger picture. How do you want people to remember you by? And then try to leverage that when you're talking to people. And so with that, we talk a lot about transferable skill sets. And those are the key skills that you have, that you're not married to a specific company, industry, or job. And I'll give you an example. So let's say you work and you manage a restaurant, or you manage a customer service team and you've been laid off. Or let's say you're just looking for a career path change completely, and you've had really, really strong customer service skills. Well, healthcare, getting back to that, is hiring. And a lot of the hiring, I don't say a lot because I feel like it's all over, but a significant amount of hiring is within the senior community. And so with that, they also need customer service. They need employees with strong customer service skills. So what you do is look at job descriptions as if you're analyzing them. Do a forensic analysis. It's not like I'm plugging monsters, just what I know the best because they're my client and I'm in it with them on a daily basis. You could set up job alerts on Monster or whatever platform you choose, and jobs can land in your inbox. And you could start studying the job descriptions and seeing what are key skill sets in specific companies and or industries and or regions that are most in demand. Companies will list their job descriptions in descending order. Most important on the top, least important on the bottom. So what you can do is you can do several things. You can, number one, apply right away, but you need a resume in order to do that, of course. You can leverage key words. And so what do I mean by that is look at the job description. If it looks something even that you're remotely interested in, apply right away. Do not wait. As a recruiter, I can tell you I used to get thousands of resumes, and the ones that got the most attention were in the beginning because they're their first batch. So you always want to apply as soon as you see it become online. Don't assume the job is going to be available tomorrow. Look at the job description. See, you can reorder your resume so it mirrors that job description. You never want to fabricate your resume, but your resume should also list your job responsibilities that you've had, skills and experiences in descending order. So as you're going from most important to least important, you can reorder those. Again, 100% accurate. You never want to falsify anything on your resume at all. However, there's nothing wrong with changing the order in which they appear. So the order mirrors the job description you're pursuing. Doesn't take a long time. It should only take a few minutes. Next thing you want to do is leverage keywords. Look at that job description and see the lingo the company is using. And I'll get to why that's important in a minute. So if the company says, just to use, let's say, human resources as an example, human capital management, they're looking for a director in human resources capital management or people resources or whatever. Your resume says HR. Well, when you apply to that job, you are married to that specific job requisition. So the recruiter, let's say if it's me, I would be on the other side of the screen, look in my dashboard, look on that job requisition that has a number and pull up all the resumes associated with it. That's great. So you applied and I'll look at it. However, if you use the company's lingo, that's most likely the lingo all of the recruiters, including the one you applied to for that job, will have access to your resume in the company-wide database. So try to mix it up a little bit. So if you have HR on your resume, look at their job description and they say human capital management, use that term at least once. So this way, if another recruiter across the country is looking, let's say, for a professional who can work from home in human resources capital, human capital management, that's on your resume, they can do a search and find you. And as a former recruiter, I used to do that all the time. I needed specific, hard to find PhD candidates in econometrics, which, as you can imagine, was not that easy to do. But when I did, I would do searches and I would look for those keywords, PhD, econometrics. And then for other candidates who applied, let's say who had a master's degree, I had to disqualify them because they didn't meet that initial education requirement. However, I kept them in my pipeline because they were really awesome candidates for other jobs. So you want to leverage keywords. And the applicant tracking system is known as ATS. That's what companies use for the most part, most of them, the majority, to when you apply to a job and people say, oh, it went into a black hole and I didn't hear anything. That's the system that it went through on the other side. And in defensive recruiters, if they're getting a lot of resumes, it's going to be really challenging for them to respond to each one. They can do different things within technology. So they send like a mass email, like, thank you for receipt of your resume. If there's an interest, we'll reach out, blah, blah, blah. But just so you know, that's usually how it works. And then they put notes in the system, et cetera. But there could be another job that you're interested in that they could connect you to internally. So the key thing is make sure you're easily found by those companies. And just a couple more notes on this slide is focus right now on strengthening your soft skills as you're thinking about your transferable skill sets, leveraging keywords and how the ATS systems work, especially now, because what's so important is relationship building skills, how you deal with a variety of colleagues, especially through modern technology, through the screens right now. So that's one thing that you could work on. I would say take classes, and there may not even be classes so much as like listening and empathy and being a team player and ethical, but try to think about how you can demonstrate that to people that you come in contact with. And also, as we go into how you interview and how you can ace that video interview, you are interviewing the company as much as they are interviewing you, especially even when you're looking for a job and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'll be so happy to get an offer. Number one, you should always negotiate that offer, no matter what economy, always ask for more. But number two is you know, look for the right fit, because the last thing you want to do is conduct a job search, feel extremely excited about a company, and then miss certain red flags once you join the company as an employee. It's a little more challenging to catch some red flags during the job interview since they're not in person. And by that, I mean, they may not, the interviewer may not make eye contact with you. You might see, as you're talking, they might be looking at your phone and you're thinking, okay, eyes over here. I'm being interviewed on the job interview. They may disparage other colleagues. You might notice people just look unhappy. It might be a dark office. All these factors are important. So you want to take into account the right fit. What is the right fit for you? Maybe the right fit for some may not be the right fit for someone else. So it's really what it comes down to for you, the job responsibilities, who you're working with, company reputation, pay, benefits, perks, camaraderie among coworkers, the company culture. And communications firm Edelman released a survey earlier this week and said, especially now, 60% of people in the survey said they want an employer that makes everyone feel valued for equality. So what you can do, especially if that's one of your top values, is look to see how diverse the management team is. see what their diversity and inclusion policies are. So you are evaluating them just as they are evaluating you. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to talk about job loss for those of you, if you've experienced it, what to say. You basically just need to quickly address it during an interview or during an elevator pitch. You're going to talk about what sets you apart. You don't want to spend too much time on the economy right now, or the recession, or even if you're looking for a new career path, you want to pivot into something positive. Okay, well, I was laid off a few weeks ago, but what I'm really excited, this has given me time for introspection, and I really excel at number crunching. I'm looking for a job in data analysis within technology. You know, try to figure out what sets you apart, what distinguishes you, what defines you. And for the college grads and recent alums who are watching in particular, I get a lot of questions about, well, you know, I don't have that much I don't have that much work experience. What else can I put in my resume? I mean, especially through Lafayette, oh my gosh, the amazing internship experiences you've had, externships, connections with professors, maybe you've done a thesis with professors, study abroad, and maybe you have a unique language, foreign language. Put all of that on your resume because it counts. Number one, it makes you more well-rounded, but number two, it helps you stand out from other candidates. So for sure, definitely. And Monster has a new website. It's called learnmore.monster.com/grads with a lot of information for recent grads, because we realize how much more challenging this may be right now than if you graduated during another time. So think about, what are your selling points? What are your strengths? What do you want people to be known for? If you were at an event, let's say pre-pandemic, and you introduced yourself to someone and then you walked away, how would they introduce you if you were not there? And you can practice that with a friend. You want to be very short, and this is your elevator pitch. You want to just be very succinct in terms of what you want to be known for. So if that person were to repeat what you said, or even if they were repeating in their mind, okay, I just met Vicki, what does she do again? You want it to be very, very clear what you're looking for. Don't focus too much about what you came from in terms of the actual job or the company. You want to focus on your strengths, what you're selling. And also, you may, if you don't already have this, put an executive summary on your resume. For those of us who may remember objectives, that's a little bit antiquated, so you can remove the objective today and include like a mission statement or an executive summary. Seasoned veteran in advertising sales, looking for new opportunity in sales in any industry. I managed budgets of 1.2 million, like blah, blah, blah. Quantify as much as you can. And if you're newer to the workforce, let's say 5 years or less, you can say what you're looking for, or something like, you know, I have a background in research and analysis, and I really love capital markets, and I'm looking for roles in Boston or New York. You can get specific. Think about top 3 words to describe yourself. And also, what's important to remember is getting acclimated to your new home office. A survey was recently done that said companies not only looking for soft skills more so than ever right now, they need to know that their new hires are adepts in Zoom calls. They can ace a job interview just with technology, because technology now more than ever, who knew that we would be working like this for the foreseeable future. So they're looking for that as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so mind the gap. This means, you know, how do you address a gap on your resume? You can do a few things. You can not do anything and just have that gap there. Let's say there's 3 months or a year or whatever, and you could, you know, just go on the interview. But you need to anticipate the recruiter or the hire manager will ask the question, what happened? Now, during the last recession when I was in recruiting, the answer more often than not was, I lost my job. And it was honestly not a big deal. And so don't overthink it. Don't get those emotions wrapped up into it. Sadness, grief, everything, you know, that's why we addressed it earlier in this webinar. Put it aside, and you want to just explain, no, the industry, just current affairs, the pandemic. Okay, it could be extremely, extremely brief, and then pivot. Well, what I really loved doing was managing people. So now I'm looking for a job managing a team. I used to manage 5 people, managing a budget of X amount, and I'm looking for that in any industry. You know, if working from home is possible, that's fine, but I love to travel. So, you know, maybe aerotech space, whatever. So you want to try to get specific with what you're looking to do, and most importantly, what you're selling. What are your strengths, and quantify it as much as possible. If you've managed a budget, what was the budget amount? If you've managed people, how many people, how often? Want to have a succinct explanation that you say really enthusiastically and authentically, this is what you're looking to do. So be ready to answer that question. Another way to address the gap on your resume is to have a statement on there. I did this, and it actually worked out really well for me. So my father sadly passed away in 2012, and I was looking for a recruiting job right after that. And I was pitching reality TV shows. I was doing some like really, really fun, funky, creative projects before then. And I knew getting back into corporate recruiting, there was really not a connection. So I basically said, like, the past year, I was, dealing with a family tragedy, and my father passed. Like, I actually put that on my resume. My father passed away, and now I'm ready. Now my head is clear, and I'm ready to be focused and available to work full time. And what was interesting is my hiring manager, who was awesome, was like, oh, okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, they don't touch that with a 10-foot pole. So that worked best for me. I'm not advising you do something like that for yourself, unless do whatever you feel comfortable with. But I just felt like, let me just put it out there. I don't want to talk about it. Like, I would just get super upset and then derailed and distracted during the actual interview. And so my hiring manager was like, oh my gosh. Okay, well, what are you looking to do? And it was a great way to address the gap, pivot, and it never came up again. So if you do have something that's personal, or you could say something that you've done during that time, because what's most important in addition to pivoting is the recruiter will ask you what you've done with that time. Now, we're during, in this pandemic, it's understandable to not feel productive at all, and have good days and have bad days and have even better days and even worse days, all of the above. So it's not like you'll be expected to be super productive. However, if you did take an interesting class, or you're learning how to speak a language that you've always wanted to learn, or maybe you've finally perfected the best banana nut bread recipe ever, just show that you were furthering yourself, whether it's professional development or personal. So find ways, think ahead of time. No, just assume you will be asked that question. What happened? I see a gap on your resume. What are you looking to do? What did you do with that time? And then just have that at the ready, because you'll be asked. Next slide. Okay. So if you are experiencing job loss, you want to talk about it, again, just be brief. Your words have power. Focus on what you've been doing, because you will be asked, so what have you been doing? Remember, this is a global pandemic. I mean, the employers as well are struggling. We're struggling. So, and we're also, some industries are flourishing. So just be ready to know that the other person on the other end of the line, if they're recruiting and they're interviewing you, they want to hire you. They can't hire you fast enough, because as soon as they hire you, then they're on to the next job requisition. Recruiters are typically tasked with something called time to fill. So the quicker they fill a job requisition and hire you, the better it is for them and the company, and as well as you. So we're all on the same team here. So they're looking to make sure that you succeed in your interview. They want you to succeed. And of course, you want to exceed. But if you feel like you haven't been productive during this pandemic, that's fine too. You could even say, this was just so shocking, and I figured out my home office, and you could start talking about your home office or something that you've done by now to feel like, okay, you're focused on the job search. Some people also have quit their jobs. I know a couple of people in New York City who quit their jobs in January and February, thinking they would find a new job because they just needed to focus full time on a job search. So if that applies to you as well, just say, I needed to focus 100% of my energy on a job search. My former environment was a little bit toxic, and so I know exactly what I'm looking for now. And then you pivot into what you're looking for. Next slide. Okay, so what to do if you're not securing interviews. For those of us who remember Seinfeld, when George would he broke up with his girlfriend once, and he's like, it's not you, it's me. So think of it this way. In many instances, at least from my experience, 9 times out of 10, if you didn't get the job, it most likely wasn't you. It was the job rec got closed because budgets were slashed, or the job became an internal promotion for someone else, or the job, whatever happened with the job, it became a hybrid of something else. That 1 time out of 10, you do need to think, okay, well, maybe I do need to ramp up my interview skills, or maybe my salary was too high out of their range. But it's important to not take anything personally. There's a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and it basically says, don't take anything personally. It's all about the other person, or in this case, the organization. And it just may not be a fit. I used to make many hires for candidates who weren't a fit for that particular role, but they took it really well. They were really positive and upbeat when I had to reject them, which was never fun to reject someone. And then we stayed in touch, and then they got hired maybe 6 months or a year down the road. So those relationships you're building are important, to not take anything personally if this happens to you, and if you had a job offer that was rescinded. Fortunately, you just have to take it in stride, accept what it is, and hope that you can stay in touch with that company for when opportunities do become available. So if you're looking for a job, you can ask friends, post on social media, connect on social media with other people, comment on posts, start blogging, conduct informational interviews. And what that is critically important right now, because it keeps you active and you're doing research. You might be exploring industries or companies you never thought you would before, or maybe it's an opportunity right now because people may have more time on their hands, but because they're not commuting, etc. So you can send a sample email would be, let's say, subject like Lafayette Connection or Lafayette Networking, Lafayette Alumni Networking. In the email, you could say, hello, I'm Vicki Salemi, graduated in 95. I've always, I noticed on LinkedIn that you work at Disney. Would you be available for perhaps a 20-minute phone interview? I've worked in marketing for 15 years, and I'm just very curious about their company culture. So they don't necessarily need to have a job opportunity available, because the point of these informational interviews isn't just like, let me send you my resume, let me get a job. It's all about the connections that you're making and what you can do. Like, ask them, what do you wish you knew now that you didn't know when you entered the industry or the company? How's the industry changed? What's the number one skill set your company looks for when you're hiring someone with my background? Who do you know? Always ask for 2 additional names. Ask them how you can help them. So you're giving and receiving. Stay in touch, thank them, and just really identify, get very, very specific in terms of what your elevator pitch is, who you are, what you're marketing, what you're looking for, and get ready. And, just in the meantime, if you're not interviewing, have an interview suit ready. Be prepared so when you do get that call, you're not scrambling. Okay, next slide. Okay, how to search. So identify what you're seeking. Like I said earlier, your strengths and where opportunities intersect. Think outside the box in terms of working from home. Set up job alerts. Apply the same day. You can uncover hidden opportunities. And by that, I mean the jobs may not be posted yet, but by keeping in touch with these people that you conducted informational interviews with, you may stay top of mind. Send them an email, tweet them an article, stay in touch and ping them every now and then. So if a job does come available, you could say, if a job comes available in your department or company, I'd love to be considered. That's how you get your foot in the door when there's not an opportunity available. Leverage short-term opportunities into long-term, meaning basically if you do get a job that may not be your dream career, but it's a job right now with a paycheck, think about the connections you can make, how you can network while you're there, get referrals, get recommendations. Also manage burnout. A new survey showed that many people are feeling burnt out. However, people are working from home. They're taking more time than previously if they were in an office to take lunch, go for a walk, spend time with family. However, more people have canceled their vacations due to economics and due to just, they feel like I don't want to say this is a staycation by any means, but they are feeling that they're not going anywhere. So you need to create structure and boundaries so you don't feel like there's no break and you don't have time to rest your body and your mind. And I should, again, I don't want this to seem like it's a monster advertisement, but I just want to tell you that there's a lot of resources available online. Monster does a free resume review. You can upload your resume. Again, the job alerts I mentioned earlier can land in your inbox. There's a coronavirus landing page. If you go to monster.com, on the top, it's like what you need to know about the coronavirus, everything you need to know. So next slide, and then we're going to get to questions in a minute. Okay, how to ace a Zoom interview. By now, you're on this call, so you're skilled at this. However, there are a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, it's often overlooked, but especially as it's getting really warm, make sure that you're comfortable. And if there's air conditioning or a fan, you do not want to be overheated during an interview. Make sure you're well fed, that you had energy, and you have perhaps water available to hydrate. Lighting is extremely important. This is what a ring lamp looks like. There are different sizes. I paid for mine, $90 on Amazon and I use it as a tax deduction. You may check with your tax accountant in terms of what you can use as a tax deduction for job searching. But this is a mini ring lamp and you can attach your phone to it. It is so important. You need to be well lit. You don't need shadow, avoid shadows behind you. Avoid a window behind you because it'll create a halo effect by your face and you'll be washed out. Sit up straight. You want a comfortable chair. No distractions, completely quiet. Eye contact is important. You don't want your computer or your laptop or iPad, phone, whatever. You don't want the camera to be higher than you because it's going to look down on you and then you'll basically see your closed eyelids. You also don't want it looking up at you. So this is important to practice. You can practice with a friend because you need to also build rapport, and through that is eye contact. And so much of the body language is lost during a video interview. So if you need to put Post-its around that tiny camera viewpoint and just say, arrows, look here, smile, stay fixated on that camera. Dress to impress from head to toe. Treat it as you would a normal, formal office interview. Prepare for it. There's no such thing as over-preparing. Arrive with questions completely. Have a lot of questions ready to ask them. Have some bullets of, questions you think you'll be asked and key points that you can glance at or refer to. It's okay to take notes. I have a pen right here. It's okay to have pens available so you can jot down things that they're saying. Also, arrive early, meaning if your interview, like for this call, started at 12:30, probably at 12:29, you got in front of your screen and you wanted to join the call. However, if it's a job interview, get into that headspace and get into that physical space at least 15 minutes ahead of time. You need to be in that zone. You need to channel your inner Serena Williams when she's going through that tunnel for the US Open to ace a championship. You need to arrive early, avoid all distractions, tell people, put who you live with, please do not disturb me. Put your phone on airplane mode if you need to so you don't get distracted. And again, dress to impress. 2 more points before we go to the next slide is I get the question a lot, can my resume exceed 2 pages? So if you're going to ace a Zoom interview and you want your physical resume in front of you, and even when you apply online, it should not exceed 2 pages. Even though the company's not printing it, they're scrolling down when they get your resume online after you apply. It should not exceed 2 pages. If you have it less than 1 because you're a new college grad, try to make the margins a little bit bigger and do what you can so it looks more like it's 1 page. And you can have more than 1 resume for multiple types of industries. That's completely okay. And you could have 1 for marketing, 1 for sales, 1 for whatever, different industries. That's fine. Just know which one it's for as you tweak each resume slightly for the job you're pursuing using keywords I mentioned earlier. And then also for those of you who are switching career paths, you may want to consider a chronological resume. For the most part, the majority of job seekers will have a functional resume, which is, I'm getting them confused. Chronological resume is the majority of what job seekers have, which is in order, let's say 2020 back to 2018, back to most recent on top. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Functional resume is not in time order. It's basically connecting the dots for your skill sets to shine, not necessarily the chronological order. And that's important for people who are pivoting from industries, or you're just trying a new path altogether. You want to show the hiring managers that you have what it takes to succeed based on past skills and experiences for that new role that you're pursuing. Next slide. So, to wrap up, stay focused, get organized, whether that means an Excel spreadsheet, using an organizational app on your phone, the notes section on your phone, keep track of those informational interviews, the companies you're applying to, questions that may have stumped you during an actual interview. Practice your Zoom, practice your skills online, even with a friend when there's nothing at stake. Continue networking, tweak your resume, repeat. There's no set time frame. People ask me all the time, when will I get a job? And I'm in this market or this industry, and we don't know. You don't know. We can't predict the future. And I've seen right now, actually, job seekers get jobs pretty quickly. So stay in your lane, stay focused, stay positive, keep going. Next slide. And in Italy, there's an expression called andrà tutto bene, and it means everything will be okay. I realize could be a stressful time, daunting time, but it's also kind of exciting to think about new opportunities that may become available today or tomorrow that you can apply to right away. So with that, we are going to take some questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Vicki. That was wonderful. Thank you for those tips. Thank you for those insights. I have learned so much during this time. I know everybody listening in has learned so much. So at this point, if you haven't already put your question, and I see there's already several questions, feel free to type your question into the chat bar. I will get to as many, we'll try to get to as many as we can before we wrap up. So are you ready to take your first question, Miss Vicki?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. All right. So the first question that came in was about avoiding scams. And I know before the pandemic, it was kind of rare to find these work from home opportunities, but now more than ever, there's more and more opportunities. How do you avoid being scammed? Because so many times there's things that really don't sound quite kosher, but they sound too good to be true. How do you avoid those scams?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and it's unfortunate that these things exist, but they do. A couple things. Number one, never, ever, ever give your social security number to anyone if they're looking for a job. Number two, research them. If they don't provide the name of the employer, something is up. Just move on. Don't provide them with any information. Even your home address. No, that's not applicable. Research them in terms of what's their reputation. Google them, ask people you know, look them up on LinkedIn to see, does anyone actually work here? Is this a legit company? And most importantly, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Very good. Very good point. Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, and then there was a really good question about ageism, and somebody wrote in that their husband lost his job at 55. He was a high-level business executive, could not find a position commensurate with his experience, has been working for $10 an hour in a supermarket, and even now cannot get something commensurate with his experience. How do you address ageism at this point, and especially when we're all virtual and people are looking at us? Is there a way to avoid ageism? Before, we could hide behind the blankness of a resume, but now with LinkedIn and virtual, we're all on camera. So how do you suggest we deal with that?
Yeah, first of all, I'm so sorry. It's very upsetting. But a couple of things. Yeah, you definitely need, I would say for him, just to network constantly, focus on people that he's worked with and enjoyed working with, and his skills and his strengths, what he's looking to do, and also be patient, because the higher level you go, I've seen the longer it takes to land. So I'm not trying to be pessimistic here. Just, I think it's good that he's at least busy right now with a job, not a career. So hopefully he will get back on his feet.
Right.
Unfortunately, I've seen ageism exist, and it's not pretty. And I've also seen people, if they've had resumes, try to make them look younger by, let's say, removing 10 years of experience. But then if you go to your LinkedIn profile, it has all the experience. It's like, what do you do? Again, you just don't want to exceed 2 pages. So I would say for him, the best strategy, I don't know what area, what industry he is in. Number one, network. Number two, think about what adjacent industries that are really in demand right now and hot he could pivot into, or what skills that he had that shine, that he excels in, are in demand in other areas. And he may need to take a step back before he takes 2 steps forward. So he may, let's say, get a job as a manager, but then hopefully he can get promoted within a year or 2. So that might be another option as well. And like I said earlier, for him, it might be, networking his way into an organization just to get his foot in the door, prove himself, and then work his way up.
All great ideas. Thank you. Thank you. The next question deals with your elevator pitch or the beginning of your interview. The question is, should you focus nowadays more on your personality and your day-to-day approach to work versus the hard skills that you might have on your resume? What's it better to lead with?
Your hard skills.
Your hard skills. Okay. That was pretty definitive. I love that. Okay. Great. There we go. Easy one. Okay. The next one was, what are your thoughts on applying through LinkedIn versus the company website? Is there any difference? Is one better than the other?
That's a good question. I don't know, honestly, enough about the LinkedIn app tool, but the bottom line is, as soon as you see a job, wherever it is, apply ASAP. The company will receive it at the other end in their applicant tracking system. And honestly, it's really just, this is probably too much inside baseball, but companies have subscriptions with LinkedIn, with Monster, with JobBite, with all these companies. And so it's a way for the company to track where their lead came from. And basically their recruiting director will be like, well, how many hires did we get through employee referrals? How many came from LinkedIn? How many through word of mouth on our website? It's just a way for the company to track, to see where to put their dollars. So whether you applied online or LinkedIn, it's still going to land in the same place. It won't make any impact on whether or not you're hired.
Ah, excellent, excellent. Really good to know. Perfect. The next question was about language, which is, how, if you've been furloughed, but you think that your company is not going to be coming back and they're not going to be offering you that job again, when you're in conversation with a potential employer, do you say that you're laid off? Do you say that you're furloughed? And I think the actual question was, what do you put on your resume? Do you put that on your resume, whether you were furloughed or laid off, or do you just address that in the interview? And how would you language it so that the employer wouldn't think that you're waiting for your old job to get you back versus being laid off?
What an awesome question. I'm sorry this happened, but this is really juicy. So let's dig in. So first, I would be completely truthful. On your resume, you can say furloughed. Because what's going to happen is when the background check, so let's say you ace the interview, you negotiate, land the job, they're going to do a background check on you. And if the background check says you tell them you were terminated, and the background check says, no, furloughed indefinitely, there's a disconnect. They may rescind that job offer because you weren't 100% accurate, even though you're just trying, you weren't really being deceitful, but be 100% on point, you were furloughed. However, they may be like, well, why should we hire you? They may think, well, you're furloughed, so when your job comes back, you'll jump right back in. You need to be clear with them that this is an opportunity for you to re-examine what your future is, and you're super excited about the role that you're pursuing. And you could say, even like, if they offered me my job back and I got an offer from you, I would jump at the offer from you. Like, you could say, like, even though you're furloughed, in your mind, you're laid off because it's time for a new chapter. You can word it in such a way so it's very clear to the company, A, you were furloughed, but B, in your mind, history.
Gotcha. Perfect answer. Great. We have time for one more question and then we have to wrap up. The question is that in a future interview, is it okay to ask how that company handled the pandemic? In other words, did they lay off their workers? Did they furlough their workers? Just so you can see if there's any red flags. Is there a sensitive way to handle that in an interview?
Ooh, another good question. And we should, of course, Lafayette alums are super smart. Yeah, you can definitely ask that. I think that's a great question. Actually, just everyone should start asking, like, but you can position it under a bigger umbrella. Like, I would start and ease into it. Like, oh, with the pandemic, what did that mean for employees? Do you all work from home? What are the plans to continue working from home? What are the new policies and procedures? And oh, by the way, were there layoffs? Were there furloughs? And you can just have an honest conversation. You don't have to go to the next step, which I'll get to in a second, but you need to know. You could say, because I don't want to be the last one in, first one out.
Exactly.
And you want to find out. You could say, what are your plans for hiring? Given the pandemic, with such uncertainty, I would not want to be joining an organization knowing that they furloughed so many people, because keep in mind, okay, my last point for you to remember is, if an organization furloughed employees, they're going to most likely aim to bring them back off the bench before they're hiring new employees. So it's a red flag almost. If they laid off people, that's one thing, because then they may be thinking, okay, well, now we laid them off, 6 months went by or whatever, now we need to ramp up again. However, if they furloughed, the first thing they're most likely going to do is tell those furloughed employees, guess what? We need you again. Now, whether or not those furloughed people all come back is another thing. They probably will need to hire,
Right.
guessing maybe at least 30%. But you need to be clear with them, you need to be very clear with your questioning and take notes and probe. So if they say, well, we had some headcount issues. What do you mean by that? Were there furloughs? Which departments were affected? Were there layoffs? And I just need to know, because I'm interviewing with several companies and I need to make informed decisions. And you've every right to ask that. And I think it's really important that you do.
Right. Thank you. It's a whole new landscape now. That's what we've learned most of all. All right. Well, I can't believe it. The time has come. We have to wrap up. Vicki, this was awesome. We did have several more questions that we didn't have a chance to get to, and I apologize for that. But we want to thank you so much. This was incredible. So many tips, so insightful, and we thank you. We thank you, Vicki. We thank you all for coming and participating today. We just wanted to let you know that we'll be continuing to have these Connect Ed talks, and the next one we're going to have is The Art of Perception with Amy Herman from the class of '88. If you haven't heard her, you are missing something. Please come and hear her. She's fantastic. That will be on June 17th. You can view and register for this on all future talks by visiting leopardlink.lafayette.edu. You will be receiving an evaluation for today's session over the next few days, and please take a few moments to fill that out so we can continue to get feedback for future programs. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us. And Vicki, thank you once again. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great afternoon.